Mindset, a daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markle. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markle.
Okay, welcome to another Morning Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Paul Markle, and it is still the Christmas season. And if you would indulge me, I'd like to share with you some of my Christmas memories. Now, when I was a young man, I was a young child, my parents had lots and lots of photo albums. I don't know if people even do that anymore? Do people have legitimate photo albums, or is that something that only your grandparents do? But we did. We had photo albums, and I remember looking at pictures of myself when I was 2 or 3 or 4 years old or 5 or what have you. Pictures of sitting on Santa Claus's lap in the mall, pictures sitting in front of the Christmas tree in my parents' house. But I didn't really remember those Christmases. Those are just, other people's memories that I see that I was there and I was present, but I don't remember that. One of the first Christmases that I actually do recall, though, was when I was in elementary school, and we were living in the suburb of Detroit called Roseville, Michigan. If you know anything about the geography of southern Michigan and the greater Detroit area, there's a lot of suburbs that surround Detroit, Michigan. I was born in Detroit. I was born actually in the city of Detroit, but when I was young, I lived in this little subdivision, a suburb called Roseville, which is right next to St. Clair Shores and so on and so forth. And I remember we would have a Christmas party at school every year, and we had a gift exchange. And yeah, I think back then the gift exchange limit was like $2 or $3. They would tell our moms and dads that we would bring a gift for a boy or a gift for a girl. If you were a girl, you brought a girl gift. And if you were a boy, you brought a boy gift. Can you imagine that in today's world? Yeah, there was no gender fluidity. When I was, we knew in the 1970s that we were either little boys or little girls, and we understood that. Even in 2nd and 3rd grade, we did. But I remember how excited I would be at the idea of the gift exchange, because back then we still put Christmas trees in our classrooms, and we would decorate the Christmas trees, and we would put the little gifts underneath them. And then we had room mothers. How many of you guys had room mothers? If you're young and you're listening to me, I don't know if they still do that. I wonder if they still do that. But the room mothers were volunteers. They were moms who volunteered every year to assist the teacher with parties, right? They're like if you guys know The Office, the TV show The Office, they were like the party planning committee. And the room mothers would always make sure that for our Christmas parties and birthdays and stuff, that we had cake or cupcakes, usually cupcakes, or cookies or punch or juice or whatever it was. And they would come in and they would just kind of oversee it and help the teacher out. But I remember before the last day, before we would get out for Christmas break, we would have our little party, our in-class Christmas party, and we would do the gift exchange. And it was always a trepidatious feeling, wondering if you were going to get a good gift, because you knew that there were some kids in your class who were going to show up with really lame gifts. But when I don't remember what year it was, whether it was 3rd grade or 4th grade or what have you. But the gift that I got, or the Christmas gift exchange at school, was a little red biplane. Yes, it was made of metal. It was a toy biplane. It was, imagine a Hot Wheels car, only a little bit larger. like the Red Baron would have flown. And back then we knew who the Red Baron was, and because that was cool stuff. And I remember how excited I was to get that. And I came home, and that was my main focus for several days, because you get out of school. Obviously, you get out of school before Christmas Day. We probably got out 3 or 4 days before. Who knows when it was. So there I am at home around the Christmas tree waiting, playing with my little toy plane, my little red biplane. And to this day, I still remember that thing. It was so cool. I was so excited for it. I remember the Christmas season in Michigan, and I don't remember a Christmas season in Michigan where we didn't have snow. I don't recall one. Sometimes we had a lot of snow. Sometimes we had a little bit of snow. But we would go out, during that Christmas break, myself and my brother and sister and the neighborhood kids, because there's always neighborhood kids. And at the end of the street, we would build snow forts. And we'd be out there with our plastic shovels and buckets and so forth, making, snow fort blocks and what have you. And we'd stay out as long as we could until our cheeks were red and our fingers were numb or our mittens were all wet. And then we'd go inside, and, my mom would warm us up. She'd make us hot cocoa. We didn't have microwaves back then. She would actually make it on the stove. And she would take all of our wet stuff, because my mom was very handy. She knitted scarves or crocheted our scarves, and she could even do mittens and hats and all of that stuff. And of course, we'd come tromping in the house, and our hats and mittens and scarves and all that would be wet. And she'd take them and she'd throw them in the dryer. And so by the time we were all done drinking our hot cocoa and we were all warmed up again, our stuff would be dry. And at least for me, I would be back out at it. I'd be back out in the snow, messing around with my buddies and friends and playing and throwing snowballs and all that until the sun went down and we had to go in for the night. And those were wonderful memories. We didn't have a lot of money when I was young. Matter of fact, it was hard. It was tough on my mom and dad when I was a young person. I remember having, a car would break down or something would go wrong with the family car. And there was a time when we only had one car. There was often. When I was young, it was very common for a family, mom and dad, kids and so forth. It was very common to only have one car. 2-car families, you had to have money. And we didn't have a lot of it. But we still had everything we needed. We had a warm home to live in. We had parents that loved us. We had gifts under the tree, even if they weren't super expensive gifts, but we appreciated them. I know I did. And I grew up in the warm embrace of not only my immediate family, but my aunts and uncles and cousins and my grandparents on both sides, because back then, at least when I was young, I was born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s. Grandparents and aunts and uncles all lived within a few miles of each other. So it was very easy to, visit each other's houses for holidays and so forth. And that was something that I've carried with me all these years. And I'm very, very tremendously grateful for that. So I thought that if I would just share a little bit with you. We don't always have to be solving all the world's problems in the morning mindset, right? Sometimes we can just share, have a good time. All right, folks, I'm going to keep saying this because I can, and this is my show. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and I will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markle, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.